Hello, everyone. My name is Uzma Yusuf, and I'm the Regional Director for Cambridge in Pakistan. And I also have the honor of serving as the Global Climate Change Ambassador, Climate Change Education Ambassador for Cambridge. Today, I'm speaking to you from Islamabad. Coming from Pakistan, I've seen firsthand that climate change is not a distant threat, but a daily reality. Pakistan is currently the fifth most affected country in the world. For us, climate change is a day-to-day crisis. We experience devastating floods, heat waves, smog, and other extreme weather events that for some disrupt daily lives and education, and for more vulnerable communities, death and destruction and life and loss of livelihood. These experiences as a citizen and as a mother are what drive my deep commitment to climate action and why I believe education has a vital role to play in preparing and empowering young people to respond. You can move on to the next slide. So at Cambridge, we believe that education is key to tackling the climate crisis. We are building a new climate education community to address this challenge. Together with Cambridge schools, we can empower young people with the skills and resilience to take action on climate change, amplify student voices, and develop their critical, creative, and communication skills. We can inspire and empower young learners to resolve problems by considering the change education to reducing our own emissions. We hope to reach zero carbon globally by 2048. And we are working with our partners and communities to build a truly sustainable future together. Moving on to the next part of this presentation, I would like to share with you that we are also developing programs that build climate literacy and equip young people to create positive meaningful and positive change in a world increasingly shaped by climatic challenges. One such example is our climate change education framework. This framework identifies four dimensions of climate change education and helps schools embed climate literacy across teaching and learning, giving students the knowledge and skills to respond with confidence. My colleagues will share details of this framework in the chat. Please have a look if you're interested. In Pakistan, we have recently launched Climate Quest, which is a free online climate education program created in collaboration with leading experts at the University of Cambridge. We've had it locally reviewed for context by the Lahore University of Management Sciences as well. So in order to tackle the climate change crisis, one of the most important things we can do is in response is to talk about it. We can share our experiences, challenges, and hopes. That's why events like Bangkok Climate Action Week are so vital. They let us confront the realities we face while also building something that we call active hope. Active hope isn't passive optimism. It's the belief that our actions matter and that together we can shape better outcomes. So while climate change is urgent, what truly matters is how we respond to it. Through education, collaboration, and active hope, we can empower the next generation to lead with knowledge and with confidence. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by three inspiring students. Faris from Pakistan, Marsha from Indonesia, and Uday from Singapore. Thank you all for joining us today, and welcome to our participants who are joining from around the world. So the next 40 minutes we'll spend talking with our students about their experiences and how they perceive climate change and where they live. This session is designed to be conversational, and this will be led by our brilliant student voices. We'll also have time for questions in the end, but as you go along, please do go on and put your questions in the chat. So moving on to our students, I'm going to ask the first question, which is to understand how they experience climate change in their countries. So starting with you, Uday, how would you describe life in your country? How is it impacted by climate change? And what motivates you to take action?
Hello, everyone. I'm Uday. And to answer your question, ma'am, I consider myself a third world child because I'm born someplace else, I'm from someplace else, and I'm currently studying and being brought up in a completely different country. And so, having these three very different and deep personal connections to three different places makes me view climate, culture, tradition, and practices, and even people from a whole different perspective altogether. So I'm from India and I live in Delhi, where there is extreme heat in summers, and summer temperatures in Delhi reach 45 degrees Celsius, making it very difficult to go outside personally. In winters, air pollution is completely notoriously on the high, and Delhi has one of the worst AQIs or the air quality indexes all over the globe, where we have experienced things like school closures altogether, which living in Singapore seems like such a foreign concept. There are also a lot of vulnerability of the poor in Delhi as it is much more visible, and the impacts of the adverse implications of climate change are much more transparent in a place like Delhi. So you can see how the vulnerable populations are effective, and it becomes difficult for many daily wage earners, street vendors, or children living in informal housing. And with that comes the emotional impact, which makes me want to make a difference and make me want to sort of solve this problem and sort of contribute towards solving it. So, witnessing these sort of realities made climate change something very personal from growing up. It wasn't something very far away or abstract. Coming to Singapore, where I currently study for the last 5 years, it's a completely different sort of atmosphere over here. But for someone who is studying environmental management and environmental systems and societies, we have sort of learned how to excavate and sort of see through even the less transparent implications of climate change. So you could see the rising heat and humidity in Singapore, even though it is a very well planned city, one of the most urban cities in the world. I've noticed more hot days as the years pass by, and sometimes it makes outdoor activities completely uncomfortable or unsafe. On the other hand, heavy rainfall and flash floods have become more intense in Singapore, leading to localized flooding or disruption. And with all of this comes a sort of climate anxiety. So now being informed about the situation, studying actively on a daily basis in school and doing assignments and stuff on the situation gives me a sense of climate anxiety as well, when I sometimes feel overwhelmed by the scale of the problem, especially knowing how worse it is in places like Delhi. And this sort of disassociation and disconnection can feel more distinct and invisible can feel more distinct in Delhi while invisible in Singapore. So not everyone around me feels the urgency towards it, and that's what makes me want to sort of work towards it, create initiatives to sort of help the problem, if not completely solve it. And I understand there's a sense of privileged awareness living in Singapore of how the infrastructure and the wealth and policy can protect people, and how unfair it is that other people in different societies and different countries and communities don't have access to that safety net. And that's what makes me want to sort of go further, study more, and make a difference.
Thank you so much, Uday. That was fantastic. And now moving on to Marsha, if I asked you the same question, how are you impacted by it? And what's motivated you to take action?
Hello everyone, this is Marcia, and thank you for the questions. To answer your questions, I have observed that climate change has impacted Indonesia in many ways as someone who raised in Indonesia for my whole life for this 15 years. So for the last few weeks, we have observed that cities in Indonesia experiencing different natural disasters, such as the popular one, which is the floods in Bali and East Java, as well as the wildfires in Sumatra, decreased water levels of river in Jambi, which resulting in the dry seasons as well, and many other sudden weather changes. This brings a real challenges to our people Many people are
Mm.
losing their homes due to the natural disasters. Then people are not surviving, and even a water crisis for local as well. So, and many harvests are failing due to
Yeah.
the climate change. And furthermore, it affects our people health. We often experience dengue fever during the rainy
Mm.
weather and respiratory tract infections during the hot weather, which shows that Indonesia are much impacted by the
Mm.
climate change and is significantly increasing. And to me, it is sad that to see our generation has to face this reality and the lack of awareness among people about the importance of preserving our environment. So this motivates me to take actions on how can we prevent those experience to happens to our generation as well, and yet to turn this vision to reality. I it motivates me to start with the small scale, such as my school community, and I did many experiments on what can we
Yeah.
do to prevent this
Yeah,
to
yeah.
to
Thank you,
prevent.
Marsha. That's fantastic. We'll be asking you about your experiences very soon, but it's interesting to hear very similar themes and things that you think only happen in your country are actually happening everywhere in the world who are impacted by it. So, Faris, would you like to share how you think Pakistan has been impacted by climate change and what motivated you to take the action you did?
Thank you for your question. I think first I'm going to provide some context about like how Pakistan has been impacted. So to begin with, uh, despite contributing almost less than 1% to global carbon emissions, as you mentioned previously,
Yeah.
Pakistan still remains the fifth most vulnerable country to climate change. In fact, it hosts some of the largest number of glaciers in the world outside of course, the polar regions. Yet we are highly unequipped for water storage and management in the events of floods and monsoon rains, which we experience quite frequently. And as a global South nation with limited financial means, we're constantly torn between pursuing development and managing disaster recovery. Now, the climate crisis we're experiencing has been consistently escalating in impact and intensity in these last few years, touching aspects of everyday life across the country, including work and school disruptions, stress on healthcare facilities and infrastructure, breakdowns of railways and roads, and of course, the frequent internet and communication outages. In fact, most recently in the 2022 floods, approximately 33 million people were displaced, and a third of the country was ravaged, with homes and entire communities being completely washed away. Now, in all of this, the hardest part that we faced is convincing the majority of people and policymakers that climate change is man-made and containable, and it's not preordained, as many are just resigned to their fate. I believe that mitigation of climate change impacts requires sustained and meaningful and collective action. While there are organizations and people out there working with containment, it requires a unified front, and that is something I believe is very much achievable now. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Faris. Thank you, all of you. That was fantastic. I think you touched on themes which are very similar, yet challenges can be experienced differently. We talked about climate anxiety, to pick up one of Uday's expressions. Barsha mentioned disease, which is again something that we all experience in all of the three countries that we are talking about today: smog and respiratory issues, and Faris talked about the displacement and destruction people have to face. Really inspired by the understanding each of you have about your context and your willingness and your motivation to do something about it. So that leads us to our second part of uh, the talk, where we'd love to hear from you on the projects and initiatives that you have been working on to mitigate the impact of climatic changes. How did you get involved, and what difference is it making in your school, in your community? And since you're all in education, how is this, your current education, preparing you to address these issues? So, Faris, if we could start with you.
All right, thank you. Uh, so, uh, most recently, I co-drafted legislation with a member of the National Assembly, Mr. Amir Pirzada, who currently tabled it in Pakistan's parliament in October of last year. And now I believe it's in its final stages of committee review. And I do think it'll make a measurable difference in the lives of the climate displaced. Now, how I got into this was last year. I worked with the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan on the dignified returns of Afghan refugees from Pakistan. And this is what led me to examine the state of our own citizens displaced annually from climate-related events all throughout. And through independent research, news reports over the course of several weeks, I identified several gaps in our disaster response frameworks. In fact, almost no other country in the world recognizes climate refugees as their own specific class of people. And even under international law, there is no set distinction between them and other conflict refugees. Now, I used this as a jumping off point where I was able to meet with different policymakers in order for me to finally get this into a stage where I believe it could be implemented into law. Now, along with this, this year, Pakistan faced significant flooding. There was catastrophic damages. At least 2.6 million people were displaced, and there were definitely far more as well. However, I visited 3 regions in September, Bonaire, Sialkot, and Lahore, to see the devastation firsthand, and I was able to photographically document the state of relief in the refugee camps for the displaced and the damages caused to their homes and their livelihoods. Now, these visits only help to reinforce the urgency of putting in place practical and enforceable laws to protect the growing number of climate refugees, many of whom are still recovering from the impacts of the 2022 floods. I believe you also asked about how my education has been helping me in identifying these gaps as well. Now, I am currently in my final year of A-levels. The subjects I took up were, I believe, math, physics, sociology, and psychology. Now, I believe that through this rigorous testing, sociology and physics really have helped me to identify they basically helped me to perfect my analytical and technical skills to identify and find solutions to this current and pressing issue. And I do think sociology especially has helped me to identify the needs and requirements for these people and the unique class of climate refugees, since their needs are far more unique and far more nuanced than those of conflict refugees. And yes,
absolutely. Thank you so much, Faris. Thank you. And I'm also surprised. I think we've learned so much from you that climate refugees aren't recognized as a class of people in their own right. And I think in times to come, the number of climate refugees is only going to increase unless we did something about it. So special measures are definitely in order. So, Marsha, would you like to tell us about your project and how it's supporting your community and your school?
Of course. So our school have SDG, or an interdisciplinary project that we need to implement, and our school have STEM weeks and a broad subject. With this broad subject, I feel like it can be combined to be able to achieve the solution to climate crisis. This is where it is a valuable opportunity for me to put my ideas into actions. And my project is about plastic bottles. This is where I focus on plastic bottles, as this is the most popular materials that is being used in my school and as well as Indonesia. So my teammates and I created a plastic bottles trash bins, which to encourage students to dispose of their plastic bottle in our trash bins so that we can collect it, recycle it to make another trash bins and another useful product. And what's new is that last week we just shared our passion and share our awareness to the primary kids as well. And it's great to see how keen they are in joining us in this project. And this made them contribute to take care of our environment starting from school. And it is supported with several SDGs that our school is promoting as well. We have 6, 7 SDGs focused. And as Cambridge believe that knowledge and skills is to find solutions to address the climate change. So my school has the same belief as well. So, environmental initiatives are prioritized as well. So it's shown through the SDGs program as well. So not only valuable knowledge and awareness that we gain about the climate and sustainability, but we are also encouraged to start a change. So we design and implement our ideas into realities. With this program, it enables us to turn our visions and missions to reality and take part in a real project, giving us a hands-on experience to solve environmental issues such as what is happening these days. And this prepares us to continue preserving and contributes to a more sustainable future as well.
Thank you, Marsha. That's really inspirational. And I think what really struck was the fact that you've been able to inspire younger children also, because we definitely believe that education can play a huge role in tackling the climate crisis. And we also believe that it has to start early on. Earlier we start, the better. At Cambridge, we start from early years to sensitize children on impact of climate and how to lead a sustainable life. So that's fantastic. Uday, would you like to share your project, your experience, and how your education is preparing you to do what you're doing?
Yes. So for me, I've finished IGCSE, and one of my main subjects in that was environmental management. And again, I've taken environmental systems and societies as an IB student as well. And so I believe that the first step before you take part in any project or any initiative is educate yourself about the issue, educate yourself about how you are a part of this problem and how you can create an impact. So the subjects that Cambridge offers, like environmental management, have really prepared me for tackling these issues. So that was the first step. And as for my initiatives, I firmly believe that it is that I would like to be part of initiatives where I can see a tangible impact of the work I put in. So starting from the school level, being part of like the sustainability club is one step that I took. The other thing is the National Youth Achievement Award, which we have in Singapore at 3 different levels: gold, silver, and bronze. I'm currently working on the gold one, which is the President's Honor for National Service. So in that, we have various projects dedicated towards the environment, and sort of in our education, the various steps we learn on how we can look after the environment are sort of all encompassed in this award. So there's a specific category of around 72 hours which you need to put in for environmental service, which includes working at community clubs, maybe working at the animal shelter, maybe even sort of writing a research paper to educate people on the issue. And another thing that initiative I have going on or had going on was the competition for Cambridge's Outstanding Learner Award, which we won in Singapore last year, where we actually had designed like a 3D prototype working with professors at the National Technological University of Singapore, NTU, and SMU in Singapore to design a prototype of a machine that segregates waste automatically based on the weight of the object. So having that experience of collaboration with different people, different professors, and learning their insights on the issue and learning where we stand in and how it sort of impacts us all through small innovations like this was an initiative I took part in. Other than that, whenever I visit India, I make it a point to sort of stay at the farms in India because India's economy is largely supported by agriculture. And so, looking at the impacts of agriculture in India at the farms and how the monsoon affects, how the harsh sort of heat waves affect the farms in India and different parts of India I visited, different farms I visited, worked hand on hand with the farmers, with the people on the farms, talked about their lives, which I'm actually writing a research paper on again. So having that sort of experience with different people in different parts of India at how the implications of climate change affects their daily life of the average Indian has really sort of instilled in me that we play a very large part in this very real and very current issue.
Thank you, Uday. That's fantastic. And I think you have this unique experience of working across India and Singapore, which is, as you explained earlier, one of the most developed parts of the world. And India, like the rest of the subcontinent, we've got our climatic challenges. So I've been really inspired by hearing your stories. Each one of you is doing something truly inspirational and taking action where it's required. So, what I'd be really interested to understand is by listening to each other and on the panel, listening to your friends from other countries who've spoken in this talk, how similar or different do you find your experiences? And what did you find most inspiring about your other speakers in this conversation? This time, Marsha, if I could request you to share your thoughts first, please.
I listened to the other panelists. It was amazing. It was brilliant to hear all of that experience. Look how they across the globe they have similar or different problems as us in Indonesia. Look how the heat in India and the displacement in Pakistan. It's really inspiring me to know more about other countries and listening to their experience. Some subjects is really useful to this, even not only sciences, others such as sociology, if I'm not mistaken, is quite important in this actions as well. That's really inspiring to me to get to see that other subject has an impact to this actions as well, and how they went across places to find out more about how to tackle this climate crisis and go to has a diverse experience as me, as they have a higher levels of educations, I assume. And it's really to me to hear all those experience.
Thank you, Marsha. That's fantastic. I think what we all need to keep in mind is we have a collective home. There's just one earth that's home to all humanity, and we all face very similar challenges in different times, maybe, but we must make sure that we protect our home. So Faris, what are your impressions? What do you want to share with us after listening to your fellow students?
Well, first and foremost, I'm really happy to hear and to see that so many other people across the world are actually implementing and attempting to implement practical solutions to combat climate change. Like with Uday, he was talking about how he was working on a machine that segregates like waste based on the weight of the trash. And that honestly made me really happy because often you see a lot of people just advocating against climate change, whereas you don't really see as many people implementing and attempting to implement practical solutions to this change. So that was what really inspired me and made me really happy to see. And honestly, that's.
Did you find their experiences similar to what you experience here in Pakistan?
Yes, I did find it quite similar, yes.
Okay. So we're in it together, all of us. Thank you, Faris. And we'll move on to Uday. So Uday, what did you did you find commonalities or did you find differences? And what inspired you about your fellow students today?
It was a very, very inspiring talk for me. And because when we talk about climate change, there are some general terms we just throw around and, we understand it's real, but we don't actually go and see how it affects different countries differently. And having this sort of stage and opportunity to see how it affects different countries differently from the first-hand experience of its residents is very amazing to see their varied perspectives, because climate change cannot be like put in a box with like a definition, because it is not the same throughout the world. Of course, the problems can be similar, but the different people, the different communities are affected differently because of their day-to-day rituals or day-to-day practices in life. So it was very inspiring to see how different parts of the world can have been affected by it, and how all of us are collectively working together to sort of mitigate these problems.
Thank you, Uday. That's fantastic. And I think you've really led into the fact that, like you said, not just that living in different parts of the world impacts us differently. Again, inequality also impacts how different communities and how different groups are impacted by climate change. For example, vulnerable groups like women, people who don't have access to education, those living in underdeveloped areas with lower income levels are disproportionately worse off due to climatic changes than a lot of other communities and groups who might have, better, who might be better off. So with that, and I'm really inspired and impressed by our young people from across Asia, very privileged to have spoken to all of you. I think I'd now like to hand over to our colleague Hetty, who is going to moderate the questions and answers session. We might have received some questions in the chat, so over to Hetty now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Uzma, and a big, big, big thank you to our amazing student panelists for sharing your experiences, your insights, and really impressive projects. Thank you also to our participants. We do indeed have a lot of questions in the chat. Thank you for your reactions and your emojis. And we'll aim to cover as many questions as we can within the time that we have left, and I'll be directing the questions to our panelists and also to Uzma where relevant. So let's begin with our first question, and that's from Jeffrey. It says, can you share some eco-friendly approaches in your school that we can also implement in our school community? Uday, maybe would you like to take that one?
Yeah, definitely. So in a school community, sometimes it does become difficult to bring people together to sort of find environmentally friendly solutions. However, the simple practice of studying subjects like environmental management and environmental systems and societies, and sort of just educating yourself about the issue and becoming like an environmentally aware person, is one of the biggest things you can do on a personal level. And on a school level, the introduction of these subjects that Cambridge already has is a wonderful idea. On the other hand, of course, awareness campaigns, the creation of school clubs is also another easy but very impactful way to sort of come at this.
Thank you. Thank you for answering that so well, Uday. There's also a question from Rania, and it says, as an IGCSE student from Pakistan, I want to know the most effective methods of action students here can take for climate change locally. And that one is perhaps most relevant for Faris.
Do you mind if I have a moment to think of my answer?
Yes, sure. Yeah, you can.
All right.
Take your time.
So Rania, I would say that the most important thing you can do right now, besides focusing on your studies, of course, is to just start researching, start following the news, start looking at relevant reports. Because when it comes to climate change and all, especially in Pakistan, a lot of this stuff is either underreported or not reported at all. So you really have to start looking for you have to start looking for information on your own right now, because I think that's the most relevant thing you can do right now. And I think that once you get into A levels, you start to be more prepared to tackle on bigger issues. You can start speaking up about it in schools. You can start, as Uday mentioned before, like you can start forming local school clubs, and you can start organizing events then as well. So I think that right now, best thing you can do is just to familiarize yourself and to educate yourself on the various nuances of the climate crisis and the best ways to tackle it. Yeah.
Thank you, Faris. Thank you. That was brilliant. And next question from VJ. What do you say to people who doubt climate change exists or that it's a real problem? And I'm going to open this to Marsha, but also Uzma, if you wanted to share your thoughts as well. So Marsha, do you want to go first?
Hi, sorry, it's laggy here. Can you help me repeat the questions, please?
Yes, sure. It says, what do you say to people who doubt that climate change exists or that it's a real problem?
Thank you for the questions. I would answer that. Look at the environments around you. Does it suddenly changing, or does it impact everyone near you, impact your country, your situations? There's some types of problems in your country that one of them is heat. Maybe if your country has heat, really hot, it might be drift from the climate change and how life around you so maybe changing, and it may affect you as well, that you feel these days. It might be because of the climate change, the effect of climate change.
Thank you, Marsha. I think that's the right answer. Uzma, do you want to jump in just very quickly?
Yeah, I kind of have an idea about the background of this question. So I think we should always go to scientific sources. Please have a look at, UN, WHO, all of those authentic sources, books, science. Everything that we do at Cambridge is also based on solid science. And one of the reasons why we started climate education was to make sure that this anxiety that you've just expressed, that does it even exist? People doubt it. Once you know what the science of it is, what the reasons are, what the reality is, that then you can, be very respectfully. We always have to respect other opinions and tell them this is based on science, this is based on logic, and it's not something people have made up. But I get you, because we've been discussing internally this as well. So it's a lot of things that have recently happened have kind of made people nervous, but don't worry. Everything about climate change is strongly steeped in science and reason, and you can go back to the skeptics with facts and figures.
Thank you. Thanks, Uzma. That's probably all we have time for. But thank you all for your questions, and to our student panelists for your responses as well. It's clear that you're leading climate action with creativity, with passion across regions and across our school communities. And we're grateful to everyone for adding their voices to this discussion. I'll now hand back to Uzma to close the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Hetty. Thank you, everyone. It was fantastic to be with such brilliant young people. I'm leaving this conversation much more hopeful and full of enthusiasm for the future, and also with a renewed commitment that we must continue educating our young people about climate, and we must continue talking about it. So all the best to all of you, and thank you so much for your time today. Thank you, everyone who's joined to demonstrate that climate education matters. Thank you, and bye-bye.